Hello everyone, this is Tim, and it's been quite a while, but it's time to make another video to give everyone an update on the status of my property and home building project. Back in January, when first acquiring the property, there was a line of rocks going along the north property line that the neighbor had pushed from an excavation project on his property. He pushed all the rock to basically make a boundary line. Well, it turns out that those rocks were about 10 feet onto my property. So I spent much of the month of January moving all of that rock by hand and making a driveway for my property. And I was going to build a garage in the back corner. And once I started talking to the county, a couple weeks after I got into this, I found out that you can't build a garage on a residential property without first building a residence. Because my plan was build a garage, park the RV in the garage, and live in that while building the house. And they're like, no, you can't do that. You have to have a permit to build a house first. Then you can apply for a temporary housing permit to park the RV, hook that up to your septic system, and live in it while you're building your house. But you need a house first because you're living in a residential area. You can't squat in your neighborhood. So I got with a designer, and turns out you actually need, if you're going to go that route, you need two separate building permits. You need one for the house, and you need a separate permit for the garage. And you need the house first. So he's like, it's better that you just design one unit, house and your garages all in one unit. It'll be cheaper, it'll get done quicker. So I went with his suggestion. So I hired him to design a house. Originally, I was just going to have a modular home parked here and keep it more simple. But seeing this is the route that I'm needing to go to really utilize the property in the way I wanted, I ended up designing the house, the floor plan, more along the lines of what I've always wanted in a house. And basically the design intention is big and simple, but it's the big part that started adding on the expenses, which I will go over with. I'll show you some of the paperwork that I had to apply for. But it's the property is now paid for. I arranged to give my uncle a certain amount of money each month until the property was paid for. But now it is, and I have the document showing that. And while applying for the building permit, I had to also apply for a permit with the Department of Public Works, because this property, I have to, when I exit the property, I drive onto a county road. So an inspector for the county had to come out and look at that part of the property to see if my driveway would interfere with the drainage pattern of the land. Fortunately, it doesn't, so I don't have to install a culvert to have my driveway go over top of that. But he did say that there's 4 trees that are growing in the drainage area that I have to remove. That's no big deal. The trees out here aren't very big. I've already cut 3 of them down with a sawzall, and the 4th one's already partially down. But I'm going to dig out the stumps and cut those out too. And a separate permit I had to apply for has to deal with the grading of the land to build a house on. Now, fortunately, this property is relatively flat. The grade is only 2% from the high corner to the low corner, but still, the builder has to bring in a bulldozer, and they're just going to go over the property. They're going to go down about 3 inches and just rip all this vegetation out to get a surface to build on. And then they have to dig the footers and establish the height of the finished floor and all of that. And that's all actually been measured. I had to hire a surveyor to come in here and identify the 4 corners of the property and find what is called a benchmark elevation. So that's been done also. And as you can see in the background, I've already started with the septic system. We had already previously applied for a permit for a septic system when my uncle was going to build a house out here. So I just needed to reapply for that, and that got passed. So I've been digging the septic system by hand. And people think I'm crazy for doing that, but to me, I consider that a free gym membership, and I like to dig. And everybody that's looked at my digging project up close they're like, wow, that's like the most mathematically accurate digging I've ever seen in my life. So I'll take the camera over there and walk through that and show you what I'm talking about. But that's something I've been working on this year. You know, the nice thing about owning a motorhome and having another place to live for the time being is there's no real hurry to get this done. This is kind of this is almost a form of therapy more than a housing project. So, but all is going very well. And, you know, the fact is I've taken the time to do some traveling and visiting family and do other things throughout the course of this year. So that's another reason progress hasn't gone as fast as it does on more commercial-based development. But the building permit got approved recently, and that's why I'm making this video, because that's been the biggest hang-up. This county is pretty strict on their building code, so it's like they go over everything with a fine-tooth comb. And they find one little thing, they send the permit back and say, you need to have your designer address this and re-upload your documents and stuff. And so we've been going back and forth with that a couple of times, but it's all said and done. That's the nice thing about dealing with professionals instead of trying to design your own floor plan. You know, the engineer who works with the designer, he puts his seal of approval on everything, and it's like, that's the final say-so. So the building permit has been approved, so I can actually break ground in regards to the house. And I visited with the builder yesterday. We had a great visit. He's in Pulse Chain, which helps, and we're working on building his hex staking ladder so he can stop building houses in a few years. I told him, well, let's get mine finished. So anyway, things are going awesome, and beautiful day here in Arizona, and who knows, maybe I'll get dirty today. And anyway, I will add some more footage to this to show you some more detail and talk to you all soon. This is the beginning of my driveway, and because I haven't been here for a couple of weeks to work on the property, nature has reclaimed a part of it, so you can't, see all the rock as clearly. Another thing I needed to do was to have my water service moved, because the building is going to have 2 double garage doors. So the driveway is actually going to be much wider than it currently is. So I had to have my water service moved to get it out of the driveway. And they were out here yesterday doing that. Both of the techs that were working on the water both live in my neighborhood, so we had some cool things to visit about while they were working. And so there's the new water service. And coming back over here to what was originally going to be the driveway. It turns out the driveway is going to be, for the most part, paved. So basically all these rocks that I moved out here are going to be removed. Or covered over, whichever. And then here is the leach line for the septic system. And this trench is 3 feet deep, 3 feet wide, and 90 feet long. And this one, because I read the plans incorrectly, is 4 feet deep, 3 feet wide, and 90 feet long. So I did a little extra work that I'll have to undo. But what I'll probably do is take a bunch of the rock from the driveway and put it in the bottom of that trench and cover it with dirt, because I only needed to go 3 feet. But yeah, how I got this to be so squared up is that I ran a string line from one corner of the property down to the other corner when there wasn't so much grass growing, and just measured over from that string line to the corners, put stakes in the ground after I established all the corners, and then ran a string line around the corners and squared up the edges. And as I got down in depth, just made sure I kept the edges square, and I just did that the whole way down. It was really simple, actually. But most people don't tend to be that specific when digging a hole for sewage. But since this is my property, I wanted to be a little more precise. And then over here is the hole for the septic tank. And I've got these 2x4s covering half of it because that is 5 feet deep, and I don't want to run the risk of some kid, running through here and tripping and falling in the hole. So I covered it up partially, and about to start working on the second half here soon. And then what I'll do is dig a line for a 4-inch pipe that will go from the center of this hole. It'll come into what is called a D box, branch off into 2 lines that will connect to the drain fields, and that will be it. So again, this is a lot of fun, and yeah, so see you all around.